The ditch water was ice cold, my stolen uniform 60 pounds of wet wool. The American sergeant raised his rifle. I, a 14-year-old boy, waited for the bullet that would finally let me die well for the fatherland. He knelt down and held out a piece of chocolate.
Go on, kid. Take it.
I woke with a mouthful of freezing mud. My teeth were chattering so hard I thought they would crack. Snow fell. Not the clean snow from storybooks, but a wet gray slush that mixed with the rain and the churned black earth of the forest floor. It stuck to the wool of my uniform. I tried to move. My body was a single block of cold. The uniform, a man's uniform, hung on my 14-year-old frame like a sack. The wet wool must have weighed 60 pounds. I remembered the weight of the Panzerfaust, and Officer Weber had shoved it into my arms. The tube was cold steel. I could barely hold it level.
You will hold this position, Brandt. You will die well for the fatherland. Do you understand?
He said it the way a teacher gives homework. Then he and the other men, the real soldiers, the ones who still had meat on their bones, turned and walked into the fog. They did not look back. The fog swallowed them. The silence that followed was not quiet. It was the buzz in my ears from the last shelling. It was the drip of water from the pines. It was my own heartbeat. Too fast, too weak. I was alone in the ditch. I listened. No boots, no voices, no engine sounds. Just the hiss of sleet on dead leaves. I pushed myself up onto my elbows. The mud made a sucking sound. My hands were blue. I looked at the white armband on my sleeve. It was not the color of the ditch, the eagle and swastika, just a tattered brown smudge. This was the uniform they gave me. This was the war they gave me. A child's war, fought in a hole in the ground. My stomach was a hollow knot. The last real food was 2 days ago. A slice of black bread, hard as a brick. I had sucked on it until it was soft enough to swallow. I heard a new sound, a crunch, not an explosion. The crunch of a boot breaking through a crust of ice. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I was supposed to fight. I was supposed to fire the Panzerfaust. But the Panzerfaust was gone. I must have dropped it when I fell. Another crunch. Closer. To my right. I did the only thing I could think to do. I lay perfectly still. I closed my eyes partway, letting the slush gather on my face. I played dead. The boots stopped at the lip of the ditch. I could feel a presence there, a shadow blocking what little light came through the trees. I waited for the shot. That would be a clean end. Die well for the fatherland. A quick bullet was better than freezing or starving. I braced my skinny body for it. The shadow moved. A man came down the side of the ditch. His boots sank deep into the mud beside me. I could see the boots. They were good leather laced tight, not the crackjack boots I wore. He knelt. I smelled him, not sweat and mud and fear like us. He smelled of wool, tobacco, and something else. Something sweet.
Jesus Christ.
The voice was low. It was not the voice of a monster from the propaganda films. It was tired. It was the voice of a man standing in the same cold rain. I kept my eyes shut. My heart was a trapped bird beating against my ribs. I heard the rustle of cloth, the click of a weapon's safety. This is it, I thought. Be still. Let it be quick. But the shot did not come. Instead, I felt a nudge against my arm.
Kid. I know you're breathing.
I opened my eyes. Above me was a face under a steel helmet. A man with deep lines around his mouth. He held a rifle, but it was pointed at the ground. In his other hand, he held out a small brown bar. It was chocolate.
Go on, kid. Take it.
The sergeant did not speak my language. He grunted and gestured for me to move. The other soldiers moved past us, rifles ready, faces hard and watchful. He took the carabiner from my numb hands. He looked at it, then at me. His face did not change. He slung it over his own shoulder and nodded toward the American lines. I walked. My feet were blocks of ice in my broken boots. He walked behind me. I waited for the shot in my back. I felt its ghost between my shoulder blades with every step.
Keep moving, son.
The word was soft, but the meaning was clear. We came to a clearing where a jeep waited, engine rumbling. 2 other prisoners sat in the back, heads down, old men like Otto Weber.
Hannes, is that you, boy?
Otto's voice was a ragged crackle. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. The sergeant helped me climb into the jeep. His hand on my elbow was not rough. We drove through the ruined woods. The sleet had stopped, leaving a gray, dripping silence. The smell of the jeep's exhaust was sharp and new. I saw the American camp then. Men moved with purpose. They had dry coats. They had stoves with coffee. The smell of it hit me like a physical blow. We were taken to a tent, a medical tent. The inside was warm and smelled of iodine and damp wool. An American medic with a kind, tired face pointed to my uniform. I understood. I began to unbutton the Feldgrau tunic. It was stiff with mud and frozen to my skin in places. A tattered armband came off last. I let it fall to the ground at my feet. The medic clucked his tongue. He gave me a thick wool blanket. It was coarse and gray, but it was warm. He looked at my ribs, at the purple bruises from the rifle's weight. He shook his head. He handed me a small tin cup. It was hot. I lifted it to my face. The steam carried a scent I did not know. Rich, sweet, bitter all at once.
Drink it, kid.
I sipped. It was not broth. It was thick and dark. It tasted of earth and smoke and something like burnt sugar. It burned my tongue but sent a wave of warmth straight to my empty stomach. I clutched the cup with both hands.
What is it?
I did not know the word then. Chocolate, but not like the bar. This was a drink.
Cocoa.
He said it again, pointing to my cup. Cocoa. I drank it all. I wanted to lick the tin clean. Later, they gave us real food. Canned meat, soft, white bread. I ate too fast, and my stomach cramped, but I did not care. Otto ate slowly, his old eyes watching the Americans.
They are feeding us.
He said it like it was a miracle, or a trick. I just ate. The sergeant returned. He had my rifle. He held it out. Not to me, but to another soldier. He spoke in English. I caught one word, souvenir. The other soldier laughed, took the gun, and walked away. My carabiner. The weapon my country gave a child to fight its war. It was a joke to them. A trophy. The sergeant looked at me. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out another of the brown bars. He placed it on the crate beside me without a word, then walked out of the tent. I stared at the chocolate. I looked at Otto. He was staring at the empty space where my rifle had been. His face was old stone.
They took your weapon. They gave you chocolate.
He shook his head, his voice a whisper full of cracks.
Which one is the monster, Hannes?
I had no answer. I picked up the chocolate. I held its weight in my palm. It was heavier than the rifle had ever been. I held the chocolate in both hands. It was wrapped in a strange wax paper. I peeled it back slowly. The smell hit me first. Rich, sweet, like a promise from another world. A world before winter and mud and fear. The inside was a dark, perfect rectangle.
Eat it.
His voice was flat, tired. I broke a small piece off the corner. I put it on my tongue. It did not melt right away. I had to let my own warmth find it. Then it came a flood of sugar, and something almost like nuts. It was so strong it made my eyes water. It tasted like childhood. It tasted like a lie. I looked at Otto. He was watching me. His eyes were not on the chocolate, but on my face.
My own country sends children to die in the forest, with no winter coats, with no food, with old rifles that are more dangerous to the shooter than the target. The enemy gives you chocolate. Remember the taste, Hannes. That is the answer.
Outside, a harsh voice called something. It was the American sergeant. His name, I had learned from the other captives.
He stood at the tent flap. He said something sharp and gestured. It was time to move. We were marched in a long, stumbling line to a road. There were trucks, not our heavy Opel Blitz trucks, but open-backed vehicles with flat noses. They called them jeeps. They looked fast. We were loaded into bigger trucks, their tailgates dropping with a heavy clang. We sat on bare wooden benches, pressed shoulder to shoulder. The canvas cover over the frame smelled of damp canvas and gasoline. The journey was a long, cold rumble. A journey to what? We did not know. Some whispered of camps, of executions. I sat with the taste of chocolate still on my tongue, a sweet ghost in a mouth filled with fear. The truck bounced over a hole in the road. My head hit the metal frame. The pain was sharp and clean. Real. Later, much later, we stopped. The tailgate fell again. We were in a vast, flat place. The air was different. Dry. Cold, but a clean cold. Not the wet, rotting cold of the forest. The ground was pale dust, not black mud. There were long, low, wooden buildings in neat rows, barbed wire fences on tall posts, guard towers, and an endless empty sky. So much sky.
Welcome to Camp Swifton. You will not try to escape. You will obey orders.
He walked down the line of us as American soldiers with rifles looked on. He spoke slowly, his voice loud.
You will be fed. You will be housed. The war is over for you.
He stopped in front of me. I stared at my boots. I could see his own boots, scuffed but solid, planted in the dust.
You, Nabe, you come.
I flinched. Nabe, boy. I looked at Otto. He gave a small, hard nod. It was not a choice. I stepped out of the line. Sergeant Miller pointed to a small building apart from the barracks. A sign I could not read hung over the door. He opened it and gestured me inside. The room was warm. A stove glowed in the corner. There was a metal table, a chair, and on the table a tray.
Eat.
He stood by the door, his arms crossed. He was not pointing his rifle, but his presence filled the room. This was the conflict. Not a fight with fists, but with fear. Why me? Why this food alone? Was this a last meal? Was the chocolate just bait for a trap? My hands trembled. I picked up the fork. It felt heavy and wrong. I looked from the food to the sergeant and back. The man who could have shot me in the forest, the man who gave me chocolate, the man who was now forcing me to eat. I took a small bite of the corn. It was sweet, bursting with a flavor I did not know. I ate another, then a piece of the meat. It was salty, rich with fat. My stomach, shrunken and tight, cramped in protest. I kept eating. I could not stop. The bread was soft, not the hard gray brick of our Kriegsbrot. Tears burned in my eyes. I did not sob. I just ate, and the tears fell onto the plate. I was betraying everything. My hunger was a traitor. This food was a trap, and I was walking right into it, chewing and swallowing, because I was a boy and I was so empty. The sergeant watched. He said nothing. His face showed nothing. He was just a man. When I finished, he pointed to a cot against the wall with a blanket folded on it.
Sleep. Tomorrow you work.
He left, closing the door. I heard the lock turn. I sat on the edge of the cot. The ghost of the rich food sat in my gut like a stone. The ghost of the chocolate was a sweet memory on my tongue. In the silence, Otto's question came back to me, louder than any bomb.
Which one is the monster, Hannes?
They came for me before dawn. The smell of coffee came first, sharp and bitter, cutting through the cold air of the barracks. Then boot heels on the wooden floor. The door opened.
Up, kid. Move out in 5.
He tossed a bundle onto my cot. It was a wool coat, American Army issue, olive green and thick. It was heavy in my hands, heavier than my whole uniform. I looked from it to him, my mouth dry.
Do not stare at it like a fool. Put it on. They are not taking us to be shot in a new coat.
I pulled it on over my thin shoulders. The weight of the wool was a strange comfort. It smelled of damp canvas and dust, but it was clean. No mud. No blood.
Fall in outside. Single file.
We marched through the camp. A gray morning light soaked the world. Other prisoners watched from behind wire. They were shivering in their thin feldgrau. Their eyes followed my new coat. I looked down at the gravel, my face hot.
Keep your head up. Shame will not keep you warm.
We were loaded onto the back of a truck. The engine coughed to life, a deep metallic growl. The vibration went through the wooden bench into my bones. Sergeant Miller climbed in last. He sat near the tailgate, his back to the cab. He watched the road unwind behind us. The forest thinned, then vanished. We crossed a flat plain. The sky was enormous. After an hour, the truck slowed and turned off the paved road.
End of the line. Everybody out.
We stood in a field of churned black mud. In the distance, white tents stood in rows like mushrooms after rain. American soldiers were everywhere. They moved with a purpose we had forgotten. Miller pointed to a stack of wooden crates near one of the tents.
You too. Start moving those to the mess tent. 1 crate at a time. Don't drop them.
What is in them?
What do you think? Food.
Otto and I lifted the first crate. The wood was rough and cold. The weight was solid, real. As we carried it, a smell seeped from the seams. A rich, fatty, salty smell that made my stomach clench. Meat. We made trip after trip. My arms burned. The mud tried to steal my boots with each step. We set the last crate down inside the mess tent. The air was thick with steam, and that smell so powerful it was a physical thing. My mouth flooded. A cook in a stained apron saw us lingering. He was a big man with a red face. He looked from Otto's hard eyes to my sunken ones. He muttered something I did not understand. Then he picked up a metal spoon and dipped it into a vast pot. He held it out to me. On the spoon was a heap of brown stew, thick with chunks of meat and potato. Gravy dripped from the edge. The steam hit my face, carrying the promise of warmth.
Do not take it.
I looked at Otto. His jaw was tight.
It is a trick to make us beg. Do not give them the satisfaction.
The cook shrugged. He started to pull the spoon back.
Go on, kid.
Miller was standing in the tent flap, watching. His voice was flat. An order, but not a cruel one.
You worked. You eat. That's how it works here.
I looked at the stew. I looked at Otto, who turned his head away. I leaned forward and took the whole spoonful into my mouth. The heat was a shock. The flavor was a deeper shock. It was not food. It was a memory of being alive. I had to chew. I had forgotten how to chew real meat. I swallowed. The warmth spread through my chest. The cook nodded, then gave a spoonful to Otto. Otto took it without looking at him, his face a stone, but he ate it. Miller jerked his thumb toward the door. But Saul...
Back to the truck.
As we walked out, I stayed close to his side, like a shadow. He did not tell me to get away. He lit a cigarette. The smoke was sweet in the cold air.
You stick close, huh?
I had no answer. He was the only fixed point in a world that had spun apart. I followed the sound of his boots, the smell of his tobacco. I was not a soldier. I was the stray dog he had not kicked away. The cage was a field of muddy tents ringed with wire. I thought it would be a punishment. Instead, it was quiet. No shells.
See that line? Get in it.
He pointed to a queue of men from the forest, all in rags. I obeyed. I stood behind Otto, who had not spoken since the barn.
Move along. Next.
The line shuffled forward. At the front, a man in a brown jacket ladled something from a big metal can into our mess tins. The smell hit me first. A thick, greasy scent of meat and beans.
Do not eat it all at once. You will be sick.
He spoke without turning around, his voice flat. I held the hot tin with both hands, the warmth bleeding into my frozen fingers. We sat on the wet ground. I ate. It was so salty, so rich. My throat closed. I had to force myself to chew slowly. It was the first real food in months. I looked up. Miller stood over me, his shadow long in the gray afternoon light.
Follow me.
Otto stopped eating. His eyes locked on mine. A silent warning. I stood, clutching my half-full tin.
Your friend stays.
He led me to a small table where another soldier sat with a clipboard. The soldier did not look at my face, only at my uniform.
He's with the transport group. Put him down.
The man scribbled. Miller put a hand on my shoulder, not hard, and steered me away.
You're going on a trip. A long one.
I did not understand. That night, in a tent that smelled of damp wool and unwashed bodies, I was warm. The next morning, they marched us to the rail yard. The train was not a cattle car. It was a proper passenger train, but the windows were barred with heavy mesh. They loaded us on, 40 men to a car. Miller was there, his rifle slung, watching from the platform. The engine coughed, then heaved forward with a great shriek of metal. The world outside the mesh began to move. We passed through ruined towns as Tex places impress.
They are taking us to a camp in France to work.
He said it with certainty, but the train did not stop. It went west, always west, for days. They fed us twice a day from big carts rolled down the aisle. Canned peaches. Their sweet syrup was a shock. White, soft bread that I could squeeze in my hand. Then came the smell. A cold, wet, vast smell I had never known. It filled the car. The train stopped.
Out. Form up.
We shuffled onto a concrete pier, and I saw it. An ocean. Gray and endless, churning under a low sky. And beside the pier, a ship. A giant gray wall of steel. My legs would not move. This was not France.
They are taking us to America.
He said it like a curse. A guard shoved him from behind. Miller walked down the line until he found me.
You stick with your group. You do what you're told on the ship.
His voice was low. Just for me. He was coming, too. The fixed point. The gangplank looked like a thread over a bottomless hole. The salt air stung my eyes. I looked back at the land, at the forest somewhere far behind me. It was gone. All of it was gone. The ship was a nightmare of noise and sickness. But America began not with a shout, but a hum.
Off the ship. Into the trucks. Brandt, eyes forward.
We were marched onto a waiting train in a vast, damp yard. It was a proper passenger train. Not a cattle car. The inside was warm and smelled of oil and old wood.
It is a trick. A soft cage. They fatten us for something worse.
We took seats by the window. Miller stood at the end of the car, his shoulders filling the doorway. The train groaned. Then we were moving.
You try the window, you'll regret it. Sit. Be still. That is your job now.
The day bled away outside. The land was flat and endless. A brown sea under a gray sky. Then the color changed. The earth turned a deep, rusty red. It looked like dried blood for miles.
Look at it, barren. A wasteland. This is their country.
Night fell. True deep night. And then I saw it. A light. A single, warm, yellow light from a window. Then another. And another. I pressed my face to the cold glass. We passed clusters of houses, small towns. Every window glowed. No blackout curtains. No fear. Just light pouring out onto the dark ground.
They are fools. Arrogant. One bomber could wipe that whole street from the map.
He was wrong. The arrogance was his. This was not foolishness. This was normal. This was what peace looked like. My breath fogged the glass. The train slowed on a curve. There was a farmhouse set back from the tracks, a white fence. A white fence. A porch. Through the kitchen window I saw them. A man, a woman, 2 children. They were sitting around a table. A meal was spread out. The woman laughed. The man passed a bowl. I could see the steam rising from it.
Do not look at them. They are the enemy.
I could not look away. The scene was a physical blow. My stomach twisted, not with hunger, but with a loss so deep it hollowed out my bones. Memories crashed over me. My own kitchen, my mother's face pinched with worry in the candlelight, listening for the air raid sirens. The cold potatoes, the silence, the unspoken dread that lived in our walls here. The light was electric and bold. The food was plentiful enough to be ignored while they laughed. No one listened for bombers here. No one was listening at all. My country sent me to die in a frozen forest, starving and forgotten. And these people, these enemies, lived like this.
Lights out in 5.
The sergeant's voice was a distant thing. The train picked up speed. The farmhouse vanished. But the lights kept coming, little constellations of peace scattered across the dark. The weight of my uniform felt heavier then. The mud from the Hurtgen forest was gone, brushed from the wool. But the stain of it was inside me. I knew then that everything I had been told was a lie. The monsters were not out here in the light. They had been the ones who gave me the rifle and sent me into the dark. The train shuddered to a stop. Through the slats, I saw flat earth stretching to forever under a huge sky. The air smelled of dust and diesel fuel, not damp pine and cordite. It was a different kind of emptiness.
All right, everyone out. Form up on the platform.
The other prisoners shuffled down, blinking in the harsh Texas sun. I stood at the open door, the wooden step a cliff. My legs would not move. The sergeant finished counting the men. An American corporal with a clipboard began marching them away toward rows of long, low huts. Sergeant Miller watched them go. He lit a cigarette. He took a long drag, then turned to walk toward a different set of buildings, his duty done. He took 3 steps. Then he stopped. He did not turn around right away.
You're gonna live on that train, son.
His voice was flat, tired. He finally looked back over his shoulder. I was still frozen in the doorway. The wool of my uniform was hot. The mud was gone, but the smell of that forest was still in the threads. In my skin. The weight of the rifle they gave me was gone, but my shoulders ached from carrying it.
Kid.
He sighed. He dropped his cigarette and crushed it under his boot. He looked at me, really looked. His eyes were not the eyes of the man who had pulled me from the ditch. They were older, weary, but then a small smile touched his lips. It was a thin, tired thing. The smile of a man who has seen too much, but not so much he has forgotten everything.
All right.
He said it softly, like he was talking to a dog he'd found in the rain. Or a lost calf.
Come on.
He nodded his head toward the barracks. He did not wait to see if I followed. He just started walking. I watched his back for a second. The sun was behind him, casting a long shadow that reached all the way to the train steps. I stepped down. The gravel crunched under my boots. I fell in a few paces behind him, like I had in the forest. My shadow joined his on the ground. He did not save me in that ditch. That was just a moment. A choice a man makes in the noise. This was different. This was the quiet after. He had finished his job. The prisoners were counted and gone. He could have reported me. He could have left me for someone else to find, but he looked back. He sighed. He said, "Come on." He did not just pull me from a hole. He brought me all the way home. I followed him across the dusty yard. The monsters were not here. They had stayed in the dark forest, and the voices on the radio, and the orders that sent boys to die. The enemy was just a man. A tired man, walking ahead of me into the light. One act of mercy in a war of monsters. It seems like a small thing when you say it. A piece of chocolate, a nod, letting a boy stumble into the light instead of into a ditch. But it is the only thing that remains real to me. The only thing the years have not worn down to dust. After that, I could not wear my uniform home. I left it in a heap by the roadside and built a quiet life. I never taught my children to hate. I taught them that a soldier is just a man, and a man can make a choice. He can choose the order, or he can choose the lighter weight in his pocket, the sweetness of his own memory, and become a ghost at the border between worlds. I want you to remember that line, drawn not on any map, but in the moral landscape of a man's soul. Where you stand tells you who you are. That is why we remember. The characters, incidents, and dialogue in this video are dramatized for narrative and entertainment effect. While some events may be inspired by real-life themes, this story is a work of fiction.